Welcome to Starter TV. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick. Our guest today is leadership consultant Joe McGee. He's an IT industry expert and a manager at Konica Minolta. In addition, he's the Connecticut chapter president of HDI, an organization dedicated to the IT and service industries, as well as author of Leadership Lessons Inspired by a 6-Year-Old. Joe, thanks for stopping by.
It's my pleasure. Nice meeting you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. Loved your book and your inspiration.
Thank you.
Share with us, Joe, how have you aligned your professional life with all its challenges, with the miracle birth of your daughter, Ursula, who you dedicated your book, Leadership Lessons Inspired by a 6-Year-Old, to her?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's important, where a lot of people need to focus on, is there's lows, there's in-betweens, and then there's your darkest hour. So in my book, I kind of really tackle all of those elements, the lows, the mids, and the darkest hour. For example, I talk about, at the end of my book, the darkest hour, I think chapter 43, is where I talk about, having kids was not almost in my cards. I had a really hard time having a lot of struggles, and at one point we didn't think we were even going to have kids, but we broke through that obstacle. We talked to the right people. And a lot of people, they really need to write about the saddest times in your life because that makes you stronger. That makes you better. And that's what I talk about, is my personal life and how I can make that into the workplace, is about those darkest times.
So she truly was your inspiration for this book.
She was my inspiration, yeah. Just kind of tackling all the obstacles we tackled.
How do you apply lessons learned at home with leadership in the office?
It's a great question. So for me, in my management role, is I do a lot of storytelling. And you probably remember, North America, United Kingdom, in kindergarten and first grade, we have show and tell, story time, where we bring an item from home that's important to us, and then we tell it to the audience or to the other classmates why it's important. Pass around the object, we really talk about the object. Now I do that in leadership, where I use objects to reinforce points. So for example, Oregon Energy, I'll take an object, Oregon Energy from 1930s from William Reich. It's basically a life force energy. You think of quartz watches, that close contact, right? Sometimes you can't sleep well because that vibe is going through you. So I use that and I tell a story around that. And I use Oregon Energy to build confidence, and I use stories around that.
And what is this dual monitoring that you talk about in Chapter 3, and how does it help your employees increase their productivity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we did a study where employee productivity is important, right? How the employee performs, how the employee has the right resources to do their job. We used to have one monitor. When I say monitor, I mean a PC screen. And we found that by giving them a second monitor, it would really increase their productivity because they could have their ticketing tool over here, they could have maybe their email on this side, and then maybe, split their windows. And then when we did that, and we did a case study, and it went really well, so we did that across the board for all employees to have 2 monitors.
So tell us how you were inspired to create Learn It, Teach It, Apply It principle, and can you share a successful case study of this?
That's a great story. You're going to love this story. This goes back to basically my daughter's curiosity. One particular day is we found a note on my daughter's TV stand, and I still have the note today, by the way, and what it said, "Dear Ursula, thank you for the pearl necklace. We can now be sisters," and it was from her teacher. So I go to my wife, "What's with the pearl necklace?" She goes, "What are you talking about?" I didn't give her any pearl necklace. I said, "Well, I didn't give her any pearl necklace." So we go, "Ursula, come here." We call her and I said, "Hey, Ursula, where'd you get the pearl necklace from?" "Mommy's jewelry chest." She took it from her jewelry chest, and we asked her why. "Why did you do that?" "Mommy wasn't using it," right? So her mind wasn't thinking. And then we used that at school as we were going to bring, she has a favorite bracelet she wears. And we said, "Ursula, what if we take that favorite bracelet and we give it to another kid and you never see it again? How would you make you feel?" She's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't feel too good." So we actually forced her to tell the story in school, where give the bracelets to someone and really tell how bad this is. Then a light bulb went off in my head. The LTA principle, it's called Learn It, Teach It, and Apply It, LTA. What I do for the workplace is the Learn It phase. It's phase 1, is your direct reports better than anybody else. So the people that I manage, I give them a project they know nothing about. And I say, "Hey, person A, I want you to do this." Let's say it's PowerShell. I'm just making something up. "I want you to learn PowerShell. I'm going to give you 1 month. You're going to be the SME indirectly. I want you to talk to the right people, build a PowerPoint within that month time We're a call center, so this would be off the phone activities. That's for phase one, is to really build it, is learn it. Phase two is you're going to teach it. Teach it is he's actually, when he's done with it, in an informal gathering, he's actually going to teach the PowerPoint to the other employees. And he's going to actually, hey, anybody have questions? The final phase is apply it. Apply it is, depending on how your environment is, we actually have a recording studio, right? So we're actually having him practically do PowerShell commands. We're filming it, and then we're sending this out to all the employees to watch. LTA, learn it, teach it, apply it.
So what have been the benefits of applying these principles? Can you share something specifically about whether it, from the standpoint of the call centers?
Sure. So let's just start here. 87% of the global workforce, they're not engaged at work. Only 13% is. That's scary. So we need to do something about it, and that's why I did that.
Now, is this within your industry or every industry? So
this is a standard.
Okay.
Right. So I decided to do that, and by doing it, you're going to build employee confidence. People are not going to leave because they're going to have confidence. Public speaking is another one. They're going to be proud of what they're building, right? They're going to be a subject matter expert, which they weren't before. All of these things are valuable, and like I said before, 87% of the workforce is not engaged. By doing so, their redundant work is going to be kind of meshed out because they're doing this project. They're going to have their mind focused on this, and that's really where you want people to stay at work. You want them to be happy, more productive. And that's why I did the LT Apron Principle.
You think Amazon needs to apply that as well, since that is just so redundant and rote as far as that workplace is concerned?
You're right. I mean, I'm sure they have something similar, but you're absolutely right. It's a great life cycle. It's ongoing, and when you're done with it, I actually built a library. Like think of it as a bookshelf right here. We have the PowerPoints, and we're putting them on the bookshelf, and not just my department, but other departments. They can actually take the PowerPoint and borrow it and read through it. So we're spreading it that way as well. So it's a great thing to do.
So what do you mean in Chapter 4 when you say raising children and managing employees should be treated equally? And can you share an example of this at home and in the workplace?
I can. So in 2009, something happened. I left the individual contributor world, meaning that I actually have a manager. And I went away from that, and in 2009, I was the manager. And at the same time, I was blessed with the birth of my daughter, Ursula. And for me, a lot of leaders, being a new leader, they often stumble, they fall. It's kind of a slippery slope where you don't really know how to lead, because oftentimes leadership in workplaces, there's no training involved. So as far as how did I take that lesson from home into the workplace, is I do it really every day. It is really, I take those lessons. I'll give you an example. Chapter 2, avoid tunnel vision. I was at Target one time, the store, and let's say there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right here. I'm actually looking through the action figures. My son loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And my daughter basically was behind me. My son and my other daughter was with my wife. As I'm looking, I'm focused. I want to find that Ninja Turtle, so I'm focused in front of me. My daughter's behind me. All of a sudden, I feel something hard hit my leg, and I go like this, and it kind of hurt. And I'm like, what was that? So I turn around, and it's my daughter with an aluminum softball bat. She said, got you, and she struck my leg, in the back of my leg. Well, how does that apply to leadership? As I take that lesson, I hone in that energy. Think of it this way. You're in a workplace. Let's say we're in a cubicle environment. Let's say this room is split into fours, right? Let's say I give you, Tracy, I give you a project. I say, Tracy, I want you to actually answer phone calls for me. This person calls, you're going to send it over here. This person calls, you're going to send it here. This person calls, you're going to send it down there. This email has to go to this person. I want you to schedule my lunch with this. That can be overwhelming, right? So each individual, they internalize their work differently. So you internalize work differently. You might do post-it notes, right, to remember how to do it, where the next person might do a different way of learning. The reason I bring that up is think about cubicles, call centers, how your employees internalize information. They create notes, they create papers, they create their own documents. I was sitting with employees called side-by-sides, meaning I'm sitting with them as shotgun. I'm actually looking at their desks, and I want to know how they're learning, right? So one particular employee had a paper. I said, hey, where'd you get that paper? He goes, well, I made it. I go, this is fantastic. This is going to help you really find out this information faster. We need to spread this to the team. So chapter 2 is avoid tunnel vision. Sometimes the answers are right in front of you. Simplicity. my answer was in front of me, but I might not be obvious to it until I looked at it. So think of the Target store, right? The action figures, they're there. I'm looking at it, but I'm not looking to my left, my right, or behind me. In the cubicle world, I did that, and that's how I spread that into the environment.
What do you mean by observing signature moves among your employees, and how does this help the bottom line?
That's a great question. So as you heard earlier about the LTA principle, we talked about making people SMEs. Well, I want to know about who's good at what right now. What signature moves do they have? So if I have a call center, let's say a technical call center, and I know I have an Outlook guru. He's really good at personal folders, managing personal folders if they become corrupt, or how to really run the repair off the network, if you copy it to the local hard drive. And he's really good at it. So I want to use his signature moves and apply it to others. And we can do that. But you got to remember, that can't be the only thing you need to do. You need to also use the LTA principle. You got to challenge people that are outside of the comfort zone. This example is we need to hone in what people are good at as well.
What is the chair wheel drive exercise? And
I love
can
that.
you share a successful outcome
Yes.
when you leveraged this idea?
Absolutely. So the chair wheel drive is actually, I just did that in a training session recently in Franklin, Mass. I did that in Prague, Czech Republic as well. But I used it in the workplace. It was born in the workplace. And in my workplace, gamification is important. Having fun is fun, but you got to be serious, and really, the employees got to understand it's a serious work environment. So the chair wheel drive was invented about going back to my storytelling, using exercises in the workplace. So basically what it is I have a worksheet, kind of a clipboard like that, and I have two volunteers. I need a salesperson, and I need someone that wants to buy a car. The chair wheel drive is a made-up product. It's a chair that I made up. It's got a cardboard box on it, and it's basically, you're going to sell me that vehicle to the person that's volunteering, and I have index cards. I call it the control, right? So I have price, MPG, safety, and they're going to pick one. And whatever the two they pick, the person that's buying the car, he's going to say, okay, I don't like the MPG, or I don't like the color. The other person's going to try to sell it to them, but he's going to say, I don't like the color, whatever index card he picked. And basically what this is about is training. It all goes back to training. And I use this exercise to say, these guys did a great job, but the sales gentleman, or just learned about this vehicle, this is all the information he knows: the price, the color, it's in stock, the mileage, the safety features. That's all he knows right now. Now think about you taking phone calls for a moment. If I just know the basics, someone asks me specific questions, I'm going to get eaten alive. So we need to build training and confidence. That's why training is important. We can't just have somebody take a call and not be trained. So I use that to say, guys, we're going to come up with a training plan. This is the exercise to prove that although they had the information, there's more questions that need to be sought out. And without proper training, you're going to fail all the time.
How do you ignite passion in your team, and how did your daughter help inspire this idea?
Yeah, that's great. So I love passion. So my daughter really was, basically the book was inspired by, she inspired the book. So passion in the workplace is very important. I really like basically surprising people. I have a chapter called Element of Surprise. And I do this regularly, where I'll just basically, I might put, a gift card under a chair, or I might say, hey, Marco, or hey, Ted, or whatever the person's name is, I'm going to have you tomorrow lead my meet and greet. So I'm very passionate about is surprising people, putting people on their toes, challenge them to step outside their comfort zones, not just monthly or yearly, but every day. And I'm really inspired about her passions of learning and growing, and I really do that in the workplace every single day.
Tell us about this switcheroo challenge. What is this?
I love the old switcheroo challenge, and it really goes back to in a call center. If you work in a call center, or you've ever seen a call center, it's very busy, it's very stressful. In a stressful environment, you really need to have people really excited about it. And sometimes with people, it's hard to do that. The old switcheroo challenge is basically a contest. Let's say you have a call center with multiple managers. I came up with the idea you're going to do a fundraiser. Let's say I have 4 managers on my call center. You're going to donate money into the manager's envelope that you want to see take phone calls. They're going to be in your shoes and take phone calls. So you're donating money, and actually all proceeds are going to go to a local fundraiser, regardless of who wins. The winner with the most money, they're going to take phone calls. So it's getting people pumped up, passionate, right? They really want to do this. And We raised a couple $100 for our local charity down in Windsor, Connecticut. That's what the Old Switcheroo Challenge is. Absolutely.
Now, as a leader, how have you turned routine days into special days, and why is this important? And share like a successful example of that.
Absolutely. So in my book, as you know, you've read it, celebration days are too routine, and I want really people to really understand that, hey, it's a birthday party, or it's Christmas, or I just got an A in a test. Well, that's all good things, but we really need to make every day extraordinary. And people really tend to forget that. And I really wanted people to understand is you can do that easily. Every day should be special. So what we do is, I might take somebody out to lunch. Hey, Joe, you did a great job today. You do this every day, but I want to take you out to lunch today. I want you to really make this a special day. Or in an informal greeting, I might say, hey, guys, today's a great day. We're going to let people go, I don't know, an hour early. We'll have a rotation. So we do things like that to really put people on their toes, but really celebrate success. Not just for a birthday, not just for Christmas or a holiday or an event, but every day. Make every day special.
Do you always win Boss of the Year?
I try, absolutely, yeah.
So how does company branding help employees feel more involved and connected to the company?
That's a great question. It's funny is that even your veterans on your team, let's say you work for a big company. I'm just going to throw some company names out there. Hartford Financial Services, maybe Travelers, any company that has a logo that has a meaning. Well, what does that mean to you? You worked here, let's say you worked here 30 years, and I said, hey, Ted, that logo you're wearing on your shirt so proudly, do you know what it means? I have no idea. Well, if somebody on the street asked you, I love Travelers, hey, I always wondered about that logo, or whatever company it was, and you're going to say, I have no idea. How do you think that's going to make you feel as an employee? So branding is very important. I'll give you a quick story. Konica Minolta. I actually manage a team there at Konica Minolta. And we have a logo that's basically, it's kind of a blue circle. Kind of looks like the AT&T logo, but it's kind of got these 5 kind of like lines in it. And that's for innovation of technology, called the light beams. Innovation blue, that's the color. There was an idea called, we're going to make it innovation blue. So the logo and the branding is very important. And I have these lectures that you need to understand the branding. You have to have a brand ambassador. You have to lead your team, your company. Be proud of what you're wearing. And people just tend to forget about that.
From a leadership perspective, what do you mean in Chapter 8 when you talk about strangers among us within organizations?
That's a great question. I love that question because big Fortune 500 companies, I've worked at many, Hartford Financial in 2009, I'll throw out an example from there is, we're talking about 3 buildings in Hartford, Connecticut, and in those buildings, the tower building has, I think, 22 floors. Now, let's say I'm a new leader. Well, guess what? Maybe, 2 doors down, maybe the 5th floor, maybe the 22nd floor. There's leaders among us. There's strangers among us. If there's something that may not be working or something that might be working well, we need to share that wealth. We need to talk to these people. And people forget, it's so strange to me that communication in the workplace, it's so hard to do, and people have problems doing that, but not that. Reach outside to these other departments, reach outside to your peers, your other managers, and really talk to them. Strangers are among us. They can be found, and you need to engage those people.
What is the McGee Success Ladder, and how has it helped you professionally?
That's a great question. So I use that basically to, when I was an individual contributor, I used these ingredients to really climb the ladder. The first thing I want to really throw out there is, if you're assigned a task, beat the snot out of it. You really got to beat the snot out of it and really do it and really talk to the appropriate people. If there's a roadblock, go to those people and find out what's the holdup, what's going on here. And it could be the subtle, simplest things. And, people just were really blown away where when I first started in Konica Minolta, which is a corporate environment, not more like corporate insurance world, where my computer was taking forever. It was taking a long time to get to me. And I just made inquiries, and people were like, oh, you're really passionate about it. I'm like, yeah, just talk to people, find out what the holdup is, right? And you got to do that to really be more stronger, more better. Go outside your comfort zone is another one, and I've done that many times to really help me build my career. Willingness. You got to be separated from other people. Well, what makes Joe McGee Joe McGee? What is he doing that this guy isn't? Why is he excelling? Things like that, and it really helped me leverage my success.
How can call centers protect themselves from employees who want to cheat the system? And what are traits that you look out for when you're hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. You really got to look at, I'm a hiring manager as well, so you look at, gaps in resumes, obviously is a red flag. If they're a contractor, they're jumping ship, they're going to this company, they're going to that company, very short periods of time. Well, is there a reason behind it, or did the contract really end? So you really want to understand that, because some people, they may not be a good fit for them. And I'll give you an example, there's roles that are kind of interreliant, but not so interreliant. I'll give you an example. Call center, help desk agent, and desktop technician. It takes a great person to come from a desktop technician into a help desk role. Not everyone can do it. So if I have a desktop tech trying to be a help desk agent, I really want to understand that he wants that and he can do it, because it could be scary for them. I'll give you an example. I was actually interviewing someone who just was a desktop technician, and I said, hey, this is a call center environment. Oh, I really don't like call centers, he said to me. I said, hey, I tell you what, I said to him, I said, did you ever buy a new vehicle lately? He goes, yeah. I go, let's say I want to buy a new Toyota, and a good sales rep says, hey, Ben, is this car for you? Is it definitely Toyota brand? I said, well, no, it's really not for me. I'm looking around right now. Well, a good salesman, he would not give him a price because he's shopping around. He might say, okay, come back when you're ready, and then I'll give you your best price. Same thing for this interview. This interview is over. It's not made for you. Goodbye is what I said to him. So you got to be made for the role, and it's got to be fitting for you. As far as cheating the system, to your question about that, technology. We use technology to find the cheaters, right? There's phone modes like aux mode. Well, let's say he's available, he goes in aux mode and then he flips back. And the reason he's doing that is he's actually going from here down to here. Because if you're available, and let's say there's two people under him, and you go like that, you're going to be at the bottom of the list, not the top. So he's doing that to avoid taking a call before his peers. Technology lets us see that.
So he's slacking.
Slacking,
but you can find that out now with it.
We can find that, yes, correct.
Is that why we're, as a consumer, left on hold so often with these slackers and doing all of these technical things?
Pretty plausible. It might happen, yeah.
Describe for us the ideal working environment to help spark creativity.
That's a great environment. In my book, I actually talk about Google, for example, and never been there, but I heard stories where they have a slide going down, and they really make it a really great working environment. But you don't have to be a Google to really have a great environment. I'll give you some examples. Make a feast out of it, make a day out of it. We have chili cook-offs, right? Have the employees have a day, shut down the hotline, have a feast, have a cook-off. Have a catered pizza truck come, have a barbecue catered, shut down the hotline. Say, guys, oh, this is great. We're going to have we're celebrating you. If you're in the call center, you probably know October is Customer Service Week. Get involved, do activities to really pat them on the back or pat her on the back. One thing you could do very easily is to make it a fun place to work is really about your employees. Make it a fun place. One thing we did is we actually made ice cream sundaes catered to the employee. Think of me going down an aisle of a cart. In the cart I have vanilla, I have chocolate, I have sprinkles. Hey Tracy, you did such a great job. What kind of ice cream can I make you right now? It's a management team, we're making you ice cream. Right? So things like that, it can really go a long way. They're very simple. You don't got to put a lot of money into it. A lot of people said, hey, it's really not in the budget, but things like that, they don't cost a lot of money. And it shows your initiative to give back to the employee.
Motivating different personality types, that would definitely be one of them with the ice cream.
Yes.
So share with us how you do that and give an example of someone where this worked out for you.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So really about motivation in the workplace is important because it ties back to being productive. You want them to perform at 100%. So how do you really motivate them to do more? I'll give you an example. I had an employee that basically was working in help desk area, but they wanted to do more. They wanted to go like the security team, security design team. Well, how do I really want to show them? How do I want to motivate them to get there? And what it is it's a commitment between the manager and the employee. You need to mutually commit that on paper, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And not just you're going to do it, but I'm also going to do things to get you where you want to go. So this employee that I'm referring to, job shadowing is really important. So he wanted to go into security design. Well, guess what? For a week, I'm going to leverage the other department. I'm going to say, hey, this employee he's really hungry for security design. Can we have him sit with an employee in your team? And we did that. So we're motivating him, and I'm actually mutually agreeing to do that. Okay, we did that. Okay, let's get some training to help you get into the security design role. I want you to do X, Y, and Z WBTs. So things like that is really motivating them, really pushing them, but not just pushing them, pushing me, myself, as a manager to do my part as well.
What is your gold standard method, and as far as when you're trying to help your employees learn and grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really ties back about having fun at work. The LTA principle is really all kind of things that we talked about really tie into that. You know, proper motivation, proper productivity. So my gold standard is things that I really instill in myself is be truthful, be authentic, you know, be yourself. And you really need to do that. If you want to work for me, you got to have all those items. And I'll give you an example with an employee that did not do that. But since we had the conversation, they really opened up to me. And I'll give you an example. And you know this, call centers, we can see everything. All calls are recorded. So this one particular day, a call center agent had a call, and I'm listening to the call. It actually was a live call, not a recorded call. And I randomly pick calls to do in live form. And I'm listening to him, and he goes, the gentleman goes, "Hey, I want to get you next time I call. Can I ask for your name?" This person says, "No, you can't do that. I'll be in training tomorrow." So I'm looking on the calendar. I'm like, he's not in training. So my interest is sparked. So I'm keep looking. I'm listening. So at the end, he's a remote worker, by the way. So at the end of the call, I chat him on my chat. I go, "Hey, are you in tomorrow?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm in." I go, "Are you in training?" "No, I'm not in training." "Well, that's funny. I just heard a phone call, and you said you're going to be in training tomorrow."
What was his response?
"What's going on?" That's a great question. So he said, "Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. My father's not feeling well. I'm probably going to call out." I said, just be upfront with me next time. And things like that is really being truthful, really being honest. That's my gold standard. Is I want the same of my employees that I give back to them, is being truthful, being honest.
So he didn't suffer any repercussions. He was then being honest with you.
He was. From that point forward, yes.
What is the 5 and 5 concept, and can you share a case study of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 5 and 5 concept, people say, "Joe, is that a cocktail?" It's not a 7 and 7, and it's called the 5 and 5. So basically what it is a lot of people, and this goes in any industry, and you can ask many people, is you call somebody to a meeting and they're like, "What did I do now?" They think it's a bad thing. Well, it's not always a bad thing, right? So the 5 and 5 I invented for 5 good things and 5 things you need to work on. So in our meeting every month is I highlight the 5 things you did very well, and then the 5 things we need to work on. And the plan is take the 5 things you need to work on, and we're going to move them up to the positive for next month. It's a life cycle. So I talk about the 5 good things, you know, great job, and then we talk about the things they need to work on. And I call it the 5 and 5. It's not always about bad things. You got to put the good and the bad into your conversation. And that's what the 5 and 5 is about.
What are some of the biggest challenges for hiring managers?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest challenges for me is, again, going back to what I said before, is people are kind of, they're not always honest. So I had one particular person where we're getting very close to hiring them, and it turns out he had no transportation, which we asked them, "You have reliable transportation?" "Oh, yeah, no problem." "Well, now I don't." "Well, guess what? Now I'm not hiring you." So it's really challenging. In my industry, we're very specialized. So it's really about finding the right people that can really do the job, and it can be hard to do, not just on assessments, but when we're talking. We got to have a great connection when we're talking. And sometimes when we talk to people, they don't do very good in interviews. But sometimes we got to see through that and really, well, I've had a few times where they didn't interview so well, but I brought them back and I wanted them to sit in the environment to really feel the environment, and they actually were fine. So it could be about people that are just scared, or they're very nervy in interviews. So it could be very challenging really finding the right people. But I will say this to the viewers is that give people a second chance and go with your gut, because it could be that golden nugget out there, and you're going to pass over them if you don't.
How do you deal with troubleshooting personalities?
That's a great one, because there's so many personalities out there, right? I mean, there's so many that can be seen, and there's so many that can't be seen. And what we do is we basically identify the personalities in the workplace, and sometimes you could get your people that are really really outgoing and you're talkers, right? So, you have somebody on the phone where, okay, your job is to answer a phone call, not really talk to them about the weather or talk to them about, you're very outgoing, you're very, very passionate about what you do, but you really elongate the conversation. So we have cheerleaders, we have so many different personalities. And what I will say this is, depending on the personalities, is you take, let's say your cheerleader can be somebody who can really, be that brand ambassador, or really be that person to really bring up the team, bring up the spirits. And you got to have them talk in an informal gathering. And I do that regularly where, think of it as this, I hate to say it, but if I get hit by a car tomorrow, you really need to have your alpha employee ready to go. He's the cheerleader. He's the person that can really be you. I mean, there's going to be some mold and some, training that's involved, but you need to have that thought in your mind that personality, that person's going to be my replacement one day, and you got to really identify them. And and there's so much other personalities that you got to work on. So just basically by taking different personality traits, having them sit with different people, or hey, you're a little loud, you got to work on this. And we see so many types in the call center.
As far as introverts and extroverts, how do they deal? How effective are they on these calls? Is one dealing with it better than the other? You know how they say actors are usually quiet and introverted, but yet they're great on stage. Does that play into this at all? It's
funny you ask that. Every call center they have a particular greeting, right? Thank you for calling. Joe Schmo. My name is Ted. I see you're calling on blah blah blah, right? And there's people in my experience that do that very well. So it's really about getting the people that have a problem with the greeting with the people that can do it very well. Have them sit with them for a day. I want you to sit with James. See how he does his greeting. He can do it really well. And there's other people that are reverses. They do the greeting very well, but sometimes they have a hard time with technical terms, or they're not the strongest technically. So it can be hard to really balance the people that really got the soft skills down versus technical skills down, or the technical jargon. Or they might be given too much jargon. Thinking of it this way is, I use this analogy a lot, is you got to know who you're talking to on the phone, because you could be talking to an end user, you could be talking to a technician. Number one is you got to understand who you're talking to and really talk on their level. If you're talking to someone that doesn't really know it too well, I hate to say it, but talk to them like you're talking to an 8-year-old is what I say, right? Is you really got to be very open with them to really lead them into what's going on. Okay, I want you to take your mouse, or I want you to click on the Windows keyboard. It looks like, a couple squares on your keyboard, bottom left. Or I want you to do this. And you really got to talk to them to their level. And it can be challenging, but we see it every day.
What is the recipe for a winning department that you've managed in the past?
Yeah, so I think for me, going outside your comfort level is key for a recipe of success, because if you don't challenge your employees, like we said, 87% of the workforce, they're not engaged. Only 13% is. So if they're not engaged, you got to make them engaged. And by going outside their comfort level, it makes them engaged. So one thing that we did with certain employees is, let's say I have an employee who doesn't know Wireshark. Wireshark, for those that don't know, it's a network analysis tool, right? So if I have a drop of packets at 1:50 p.m. or a logon failure, the Wireshark capture is a tool like, think of about buying a car. Use Kelley Blue Book as a meeting of information. Same thing of Wireshark. I use it as a tool to find out what happened. So I want employee A to learn Wireshark and go with employee B. And we do that regularly. And it really, you need to do that, because if you don't, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be satisfied. They're not going to be happy with just redundant work. You got to go outside your comfort zone.
How do you leverage your alpha employees?
That's great. So we talk about alpha employees in the book. And think about wolf packs, right? You have your alpha male who really leads the wolf pack. Is you really need to identify them and really have them as your contingency plan. Because if something happens to me, I want that alpha to lead it all. I want that alpha to lead the team. There might be times where I'm on vacation, or I'm in a training, or I'm somewhere else and I'm not really readily available. Well, guess who I'm using as my backup? My alpha. He's ready to answer the questions. He's really technically savvy. He or she is really focused on the technical aspect of it or the management duties. And people really need to identify these employees sooner than later. And I use the Alpha Employee to do that regularly.
What's the best way to approach change within an organization?
That's a great question. I love that question because change in the organization can be very, very hard. And sometimes employees tend to embrace change. It's really hard to embrace it. So I go back about using stories to embrace change. I'll give you an example. In my book, chapter about misdirection, I use a story called The Origin of God's Vision. And I talk about think about this, is God's vision is changing, but let's think about this for a moment. Many movies actually say this. Think about War of the Worlds. For all of mankind, man being the operative word. Think about construction workers. For the longest time, it used to be men working. Why not construction workers working, right? Because it could be females, it could be men. Think about, for the longest time, 1800s, we're talking about, hey, I want to go build a snowman, not a snow woman or a snow person. Well, why is that? I get fired up when my kids come home and they have a calendar invite, draw a snowman. Why can't it be a snow person or a snow, why does it have to be a snowman? So I use a story where basically right now, God's initial vision is changing. Women are being more inclusive in the workplace, equality. Things are changing, right? It used to be, okay, a man's job is they're going to shovel snow or they're going to, break up wood or they're going to, work in construction or work for the military or basketball at WNBA now, right? So women are being more inclusive. God's initial vision is changing. And I use that story to embrace change. And I say, guys, this story, think of it what we're doing now. It doesn't have to be this way. I'm using the origin of God's vision to tail that into my plan.
Talk about an instance where you exhibited a type of action in the workplace that was not acceptable to management, and what lessons did you learn from it? That's
great because actually I was guilty of this. I did this, and this is I basically called it the chair of God. And what I did, this was dating back 2005, 2006. I worked for a big IT consulting company. They're global, around 80,000 employees. And basically, we were in a cubicle environment. There was four people per cube. And among our cube area, we really wanted to ignite fire, passion in what we do. But we were, again, back to my practices, we were bored. We wanted more. So we saw a chair down the hallway that was a recliner chair, but it wasn't working. We decided to drag the chair down the hallway into our cubicle. And basically what we did is we used it as a control. If we did a really good job, we took the most amount of calls or we did the most amount of resolutions, we're going to kick back our feet and we're going to use the chair as we're reclining right now, and we're taking phone calls. Well, our boss didn't like that very much. He chatted us. He goes, what is this I hear about a new addition in the cube? And I go, the chair of God, ? I branded my chair. Long story short is basically I created this to really do more, but management needs to understand is that should be a key tell that I'm bored, give me something more, right? So that's kind of what we did.
And what changed after that?
Not a whole lot, but we tried, not a whole lot. I actually ended up leaving not too long after that. So, and there's an example of why. Is we're bored, we're too much redundant work, we need more.
What is the give it to me personality and why are they valued in the workplace?
Yeah, the give it to me is good because you can throw a phone book at them and say, I want you to do this.
Were you one of those?
I was.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it me anything, I'll do it, right? So, and I have a lot of employees that I know this person can do this very easily, which is good. And they can do it, they're nailed out of the ballpark. But you got to don't forget about the others. You got to spread the workload evenly. Now, if employee A doesn't know about this topic, it's on me to really make them stronger, make them better. Because I can rely on my give it to person, but don't forget about the other fish in the sea too.
Chapter 30 of your book, you talk about being a yes man.
Oh,
Can you share an example of why you failed by becoming this yes man?
That's a great example. So like I mentioned before, in 2009, I was a new leader. And for me, and people knew this, my upper management would give me pretty much anything, and they know I would do it. I would nail it on the ballpark, but you got to really manage your priorities. for me, I would say yes to everything. It could be, a huge project. It could be something very small. But I would never say no. I would never say no. So the reason I bring this up is the manager who was up higher than me, right before I left, is she said to me, Joe, you need to know how to say no. And that really stuck with me. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, you could just, delegate some of the stuff. Don't feel bad to say no. And I actually use that as a learning example that she's right. I don't have to really solve the world today. I can delegate this to my alphas, or I could delegate this to someone else. That's what the yes man was. I was the yes man. Now I'm the no and the yes man.
Now, why is face-to-face communication so important in the workplace as opposed to text and emails?
It's a great question. So, especially with employees, giving them praise or giving them, 5 and 5 coaching, is you really got to give that personality types the chance to really talk with you in person. Same thing for remote workers, or if you're managing another team. I used to manage a team in Ramsey, New Jersey. I was in Windsor, so it's about, hour and a half. So instead of opposed to doing their monthly over the phone, I made it on me to drive and really connect with them personally, because it's important. You really want to know what's happening with them, and you got to give them respect to actually talk with them in person, if you can. Some remote workers, they could be, in different countries or different parts of the world, but even a remote session, a go-to meeting is really valuable, because facial expressions or their tone, you're kind of seeing where they are, comes off better in person than it is in an email. Or not only in an email, but emails can be misconstrued sometimes too. So in person always.
What elements have made your management style successful, and can you share an example of this?
Yeah, I think for me, I'll give you an example, is going outside my comfort zone is a big part of my McGee success ladder. In 2012, I'm very technical, by the way, so I was executive desktop support, I'm a webmaster, I do a lot of many different things. But when I started first working for a company called Konica Minolta, I was given a task to redo their employee assessment. It's a quiz. And in the quiz, in the copier world, it's not just about technical skills, it's about electrical, electronic, it's about scenarios. I knew nothing about electrical, electronic. I'm very technical, so I could do the computer hardware questions, no problem. So I'm developing the 70-question quiz where stuff that it's outside my comfort zone, so the electrical, the electronic, and I'm actually putting this together. And I put it all together, I do my research, I put all these questions together, I call a meeting with my management staff. I said, guys, this is the quiz that I put together for you. I want you to look at it, look at the answers, tell me what you think. Everyone was, Joe, great job. You nailed it out of the park. Nothing needs to be changed. Let's roll with it. So for me, the personal satisfaction of doing the electrical, doing the electronic questions, when I don't even really know much about it, I nailed it out of the ballpark. And you got to do that. Challenge yourself.
How do you help your employees navigate issues together as well as use the element of surprise?
Great question. So I have a whiteboard. If you don't have a whiteboard in your environment, I really suggest you do that, because I involve the employees in questions. Now, they're the frontline staff. Being a frontline staff, they see, I could see it all, but they see, a lot of stuff before I would, right? And I have a whiteboard, so I say, hey guys, this is today's topic. I want you to really tell me how we're going to get around it. Hey, employee A, this is my question. Let's say it's on scan the email or scan the FTP. We have a lot of folks that don't really know it well. I want you to write on the whiteboard how we're going to fix that. So we're involving them to solve the puzzle. They're writing, okay, I think we needed to come up with documentation on, scan to SMB or file structure, whatever it is. Each of them are going to take their time and write it on the whiteboard. Then we're going to brainstorm. We're going to pull that back, and we're solving the equation together. So I think that by having a whiteboard as your control, you can navigate issues together, and we do that. And that's back to the element of surprise, where they don't know I'm doing this to them. I'm actually calling them on the spot and having them write on the whiteboard.
How do you make sure you have the right automation in place, and how do you also stay on top of all the new technological changes?
It's a great question. Technology is very important, because we're evolving, as the years progress. And if you're supporting an environment, let's say VMware, Wise Terminal, Thin Clients, have a mock setup. in your lab, right? So if this WISE terminal, I need to know what it looks like. I need to touch it. You need to be involved. Okay, this wire goes here. When I power this thin client on, it's automatically going to connect me to this VMware session. All right, I can see it now. I can see how it's connected. All right, so if you don't have the proper tools in place, it's going to be hard for them to really understand it. So automation is important. Having the right tools in place is important. Automation in the call center is important. Look at IVRs, automatic routing, right? So if I call and I want to go to this path, not this path. If you don't have an IVR in place, well, my call's going to go over here, and then he's going to send it over here. He might send it over here. The IVR does that for you. You've got to have the right automation in place because it saves time. Get to the caller to the right place is very crucial. Because if I'm not trained and I'm getting that call by accident, we talked about this earlier, is you got to have the right training.
Share some of the key ingredients you leverage in order to become a successful manager.
Sure, I'll just name them. We talked about some of them is going outside your comfort zone, beating the snot out of it, your willingness. You got to show management that you're willing to do more things. And I did that throughout my career. To give you an example is, and Remedy was our ITSM tool. It's basically a ticketing tool where you write up your activity of how the call came in, what you did to troubleshoot it. And there's basically a segment of that controlled the paging tables. So let's say I'm a manager. I was not a manager at the time. Let's say I'm a manager and I get a Sev1, the network is down, I get paged. Well, that group in Remedy needs to be updated quite periodically because phone numbers changes and emails change or people change. I wanted to take that on me as an individual contributor. I said, hey, manager A, let me do this. Give me this or give me that. You got to give and get back. And that goes really toe in toe because that manager is going to see that, hey, I'm Joe McGee and I do more than others. I ask for things. And I've done that throughout my career. Ask for stuff. That's all you need to do.
Well, Joe McGee, it was a pleasure talking with you today, and good luck with your new book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
And that just about does it for this edition of Sarter TV. We hope you enjoyed and learned something new today. Until next time, I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick. Thanks for watching.